The story of the prodigal son, as I said 2 weeks ago, it's, I think, the greatest short story ever written. I've been doing this for 25, 26 years now, and every time I come back to it, I find something new, something I hadn't noticed before. It's just a deep, powerful attempt by Jesus to sort of sum up his message, sum up his ministry. This is in the Gospel of Luke, and he's on his way from Capernaum to Jerusalem on a trip that takes him through Samaria, that takes him through all kinds of different attitudes and beliefs. And he's followed by a group of Pharisees and Sadducees who are trying very hard to catch him up in something that they can get him arrested for. They want to end this movement, but they can't. They know if they just move against him, that'll just help the people, encourage the people to stay even more connected to him. So they're listening, trying to hear him commit a heresy of some kind that they can accuse him of. So there's a lot of pressure, you know. It's hard enough speaking to a friendly crowd sometimes, speaking to a crowd that you know part of them are just out to get you. That can be difficult. And finally, Jesus, I think, just thinks, all right, I've got to get this out. I've got to make it clear. And so he tells the story of the prodigal son. Last week we talked about the first half of the story. The prodigal son leaves his father. He just feels guided to move, guided to explore. And so he says to his father, give me my share of the estate, and I will take it now, and I'm going to go off and I'll have an adventure. And his father does not hesitate, does not judge, does not yell and shout, simply says that you're entitled, this is what you're entitled to, blessings. And so the prodigal son goes off, and as we generally like to imagine the story, he goes off and does all kinds of profligate things, and wine, women, and song, and all of the things that people would do if they had the money. He has the money for a while. And then, so caught up in having fun is he that he finds he's suddenly without funds and suddenly without friends. Because when the money, God bless the child, that wonderful song, when the money ends, they don't come around no more. And he finds himself in dire straits, and he feels he's completely alone. He's abandoned. His friends are not available anymore. He's cut himself off from his family. And he ends up working for a farmer in a pigsty, feeding the pigs. As I said, to the whole listenership that Jesus was speaking to were Jewish, so the idea of a good Jewish boy feeding pigs was just horrifying, just horrifying. And that's where we left it last week. In the pigsty, feeding pigs, and Jesus says, he would happily have eaten what he was feeding the pigs, but nobody offered him anything, just the pigs. Have you had that feeling in your life? I'm feeding a lot of pigs, and I'm getting nothing out of it myself. Amen. Absolutely. And as far as he can see, that's his life. That's what it's going to be. There's no way out. To his mind, in his mind, there is no solution other than to just keep feeding the pigs. But one day, he wakes up and has this thought. And he says, even the field hands on my father's estate are better off than I am here. So maybe I'll try this. And he carefully rehearses the speech. Don't you love it when we carefully make plans? We carefully rehearse, and you can almost hear the universe chuckling as we do. He says, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, I know I sinned against God and against you, and I know I'm no longer your son. Just let me be a field hand, and I'll be perfectly happy. So he rehearses that, and he rehearses it, and he decides, and he stands up. Jesus says, he stands up and turns toward home. Now that standing up metaphysically is important, isn't it? Because you have to rise above the pigsty. You have to rise above the consciousness that is causing you to feel trapped. You rise above that. You turn your attention to Source. Sets off on his journey. And then the most amazing thing happens. The Father comes running. Sees his son in the distance coming home and comes running to him. Puts a robe on him, puts sandals on his feet, sign of power, sign of authority, and says, kill the fatted calf, right? We could tell the story from the perspective of the fatted calf. It would probably be a very different story, but nonetheless. My son who was gone is home, and we're going to celebrate him. And celebrate they do. He just tells everybody to stop working and just to enjoy themselves for this day, to celebrate the return of the prodigal son. And there's a lot in that message already, isn't there? The father didn't wait for the son to return. The father didn't have demands, didn't say, you blew it, you're not going to be able to be with me anymore, or didn't even agree, didn't even hear, didn't even listen to all this wordage that the son had carefully practiced and rehearsed. Just said, you're back. I'm so glad you're back. And you are who you always ever were, the robe, the sandals. You're back, you're my son, and we're going to celebrate. Now, as Paul Harvey used to say, for the rest of the story. Oh, it's nice to be with a group that knows what I mean. Sometimes my references get a little dated. We have the older brother. And the older brother comes back from a business trip somewhere, back from the fields. And he sees all this commotion going on. He says, what is happening? And somebody says, well, your brother is back, and we've killed the fatted calf, and we're celebrating, and we're going to have dinner, and we're just going to celebrate his return. And the brother goes to the father and says, wait a minute. What about me? I've been serving you all these years. I've been doing my job. I've been turning up for work. I've never asked for anything. And have you ever killed a fatted calf for me and my friends? No. Now you have to admit the guy has a point, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been here, I've been doing it. He went off and did God knows what, God knows where. But I've been here, I stayed with you, I didn't leave. But the father says, basically, you made your choice. He made his choice. I celebrate both choices. I love neither one of you more, but I celebrate his return. And that is so true. We make choices, and then we complain about the results of those choices, but they're our choices. I did this parable once as a family discussion with an intercessor, and the father had some very pointed things to say about why was it such punishment that you be here with me? That was the choice you made. Did you choose to go with your brother? Did you choose to go off on your own? No, you didn't. You chose to stay here. And I appreciate that, and I love you for it, and I love him for the adventures he went on. And that sort of ends the story, but it opens the door, as Jesus always does. It opens the door to so many questions and possibilities to think about. I like to think about what happened next. And here's what seems pretty clear to me. The younger brother settles in, assumes his job, gets to know how things are going on the estate, gets to know the employees and all of the servants. But sooner or later, that day is going to come, isn't it? sooner or later he's going to say, I need to go out again. I need to explore some more. Because that's his nature. Those are his choices. He wants to grok the whole experience. He wants to just embrace the totality of life. He loves his father, he loves his brother, he loves the estate, but there's more. And he wants to find more to love. And maybe, I think just maybe, the next time the older brother decides to go with him for a while, So it's a story with open possibilities at the end. Now, there's another version of this story. It's in the manuscript called the Lotus Sutra, which is considered to be the final teachings of Buddha. And it's interesting to surmise whether Jesus picked this story up from the Lotus Sutra and adapted it to suit himself. No one knows. Of course, there are people who are quite convinced that Jesus traveled in India during those years, those 30 years when we don't know where he was or what he was doing. That he went to India. There are many traditions in India that say that tell that story. Regardless, the story is almost identical through to the pigsty. But in the Buddhist version, in the pigsty, the prodigal son is so oppressed, so self-demanding, that he literally loses his mind. He goes mental. And he starts to wander like a beggar on the roads. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't remember who he is. He's just roaming around, and depending on the kindness of people to keep him alive. In his wanderings, he wanders back to his father's estate. Now, the father realizes that he's out of his mind. And that to say, guess what, you're my son and all of this is yours and let me put a robe on you, would just freak him out even more. So the father does this. He says, I'm going to just put him to work in the fields and let him ease his way into knowing who he is. Let him come back to his true mind so that he can become the inheritor that he in fact is. So he puts him to work in the fields. And as he begins to heal, he brings him into the house and makes him a house servant. And eventually, when it's time, when he's healed enough, the father tells him the truth. You are my son, and this estate is as much yours as your brother's. That's kind of an amazing difference, don't you think? That process. It feels to me like that's where I am a lot of the time. I'm trying to come into my right mind again. I'm trying to come back to who I always was, but I've forgotten. We've all forgotten. This is the madness is just this two-dimensional, three-dimensional experience we're having. An illusion that we are somehow separate from an angry God who is judging us and punishing us, and we just know, without question, we just know that we can't go back because we've burned that bridge behind us. But we do start back. We start wandering. We start moving. You've all started moving, or you wouldn't be here this morning. We've all thought, there's something calling me forward. I may not understand it. I may not know exactly how to get where I'm going. I may not know where I'm going. But something is causing me to get out of the pigsty and move forward. But it's a process. It's a process of coming to our full awareness and full expression of ourselves. Yeah? And that seems very true to me. I mean, I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly think, whoa, you know what, I'm spirit and this is all an illusion. No, it's still being a gradual experience. I am constantly turning corners and finding, oh, but if I'm spirit, then that can't be true. That experience I've just had, that feeling I've just had, that self-blame I've just felt, that can't be true. It's like Myrtle Fillmore's healing realization. I am a whole and perfect child of God. I do not inherit sickness. She'd been told all her life that she had inherited tuberculosis because she was from a tubercular family, and that she had to guard and protect her health because she was very delicate and she would probably die young anyway. And she suddenly thought, I don't think so. That cannot be true given what I have come to know spiritually. I cannot inherit sickness, so I've got to rethink this. And she spent months and years literally in meditation going back to every part of her body, every organ, every muscle, every part of her body, and basically apologizing for the harm that she had done by believing that she was sickly. And she went on to co-found our movement and lived to a ripe old age and was never sick again, a day in her life, they say. Just she got over that. That's an illusion. I'm not going to go there anymore. I don't believe that. So the process that the Lotus Sutra version gives us, the process of coming to ourselves, is, I think, very important. Because if we had to suddenly wake up and know the truth, we would all be in trouble. There's a process involved. It's a process of moving. I mean, I'm sure he had his good days and his bad days when he was working in the fields. I mean, he had days where he felt comfortable. And it's always about appreciating where you are. You know, it's not about serving in the fields and thinking, I hate this, what am I going to get out of here? Well, you're not, until you appreciate where you are. And once you appreciate being in the fields, once you show that you can handle that, then you move forward. And you move up a bit, and you become a servant in the house. And then you become comfortable with that. And then there's more. There's always more. But I like the fact that it's a process. I think we're going to, during our discussion group today, I think we will talk a little bit about that, the difference between those two stories and exactly how that process works. There's not that there's anything invalid about the prodigal son as Jesus told it. It's a powerful, powerful, powerful story, isn't it? Yeah. And the relationship between the son and the father is, if anything, clearer there than in the Buddhist version. The father is nothing but joy and love. The father never judged him for leaving. He judged himself for leaving. We judge ourselves. God must be angry at me because look where I am. You know, I'm in this pigsty. Well, you chose that. We all chose to be here, you know. We are spirit. Each and all of us are spirit. We're not people containing spirit. We are spirit. Everything about us is spirit. Everything about us is divine. We have forgotten that. We have lost our spiritual minds. We don't remember the truth of who we are. And we are never separate from God. That is the astounding message. And Jesus is giving this message to people of the Jewish faith who are all about the distance between them and God and somehow making amends to an angry God. And Jesus is saying there is no angry God. And there is no distance. There is no, all you have to do is stand up and turn in the right direction and you will be rewarded with all of the spiritual energy you can handle. You don't even have to understand it. You don't have to figure, don't you love it when we figure things out? You don't have to figure out how to become more spiritual. You cannot become more spiritual. You couldn't, there's no way, because you're infinite spirit as you are. And for whatever reason, and I don't know that reason, maybe somebody does, I don't, we agreed to come into this experience of duality. Yeah? Now, I have a close friend in Unity, another Unity minister, Ellen Debenport, who is the author of The 5 Principles, which is a book you may have here. Should have if you don't. It's a very powerful explanation of the 5 principles. And she and I, we both worked in Dallas together, and every once in a while on a Sunday we would just get chairs and sit down, and people would go, oh, goody, because we would bat back and forth. We agree on the principles of unity. We agree on the 5 principles, but the implications of them and what they mean and we see things very differently. So this week, she's now at Unity Village. She's in charge of all Unity publications. And we were batting back and forth this week about the question of illusion, that we are living through an illusion of duality. And she said, I'm not sure that, I'm not aware that the word illusion appears anywhere in Unity writings. And I wrote back and I said, but what else could it possibly be? If everything is unity, everything is oneness, everything is divine, then what can we call that misapprehension we have that we are somehow split and separate from the divine, that we are experiencing that this world of duality is our reality right now. Illusion, non-illusion, it doesn't really, the words don't matter, except we have such a good time debating them back and forth. It's useful because you come up with insights both ways. So we have come into this illusion of duality. And Jesus says we're here to create the kingdom of heaven. Choice by choice, create the kingdom of heaven. Making choices from our spirit self rather than making choices from our mortal mind. And where that is going to go, when we will get to the kingdom of heaven, we won't get there really. We're going to create it. So it'll be here when we choose it to be here. It's not down the road. It's not around the bend. It's not, being withheld until we obey laws perfectly. It is waiting for us to know who we are, to claim who we are, to make choices from that knowledge, and to watch the world transform as a result. So the prodigal son, we are all the prodigal son. We have all wandered from the Father, from Source, but we haven't really. You can't leave Source, it's always there. But we find ourselves in pigsties of our own making, and we are there until we decide, you know what, I think there are other choices I could be making. There's nothing more powerful than to suddenly stop and say, is there another choice I could be making here? The choice I'm making is making me unhappy, it's making me uncomfortable, it's making other people unhappy. Is there another choice? Am I willing to see another choice? And the minute you have that willingness, it's there. The choice is clear. And the opportunity is there. That's why everything about this life experience, negative things that happen, are there so that we can make positive choices, so that we can make spirit choices. We'll talk about this more in the discussion group. I think there'll be a lot of lively material to discuss today. But for now, let's take it into a time of meditation. I take this moment to breathe deeply to release, to breathe and release, and with each breath, I inhale the energy of love and spiritual possibility that fills this room. And with each breath I exhale, I release tension that I may be holding in my body or in my mind. I'm completely supported by the chair beneath me. There is no need for any tension in my body. I'm embraced by the energy of this space. There is no need for any tension in my mind. I inhale and I allow my breath to go directly to my heart chakra, the very center of my being, that place within me that always knows the truth, that place within me that sees with the eyes of spirit, the heart of my being. I leave behind the thoughts in mind, scurrying for attention, anxiety. I bless them. And for this moment of meditation, I come up higher to my heart. And from that heart perspective, I know myself to be one with my source, one with the divine, one with God. There is no separation. And from this heart perspective, I see everything through the eyes of spirit. I see that the worries and concerns of my mind are simply opportunities to express spirit, choice by choice. I call to my heart image any problem I may have been worrying about before I walked in here this morning. Any challenge, any fear. And to whatever expresses, I say, peace. Be still. I am one with the divine. I am nothing but love. And I easily dissolve any challenge that may appear out of my mind, any thought of separation, in the silence. I take a deep breath and I release. And I move my focus again to the thoughts in my mind, bringing with me the heart energy that I am. And I know that any time I feel caught up in the worries of the world, the fears in my mind, I can come back to this heart perspective and know the truth and see the truth and be the truth. And for the gift of awakening, the gift of knowing who I am, to the source of all, I say yes. I say thank you. I say amen.